AFA Today from the studios of AFA Today here in New York City. Kevin McCullough. I've even got my Christmas tie on, for those of you watching on the channel. It's my little Christmas plaid. Come from a Scottish family, so we wear plaids. Anyway, put it back in there. Glad you're with us. As I said, Kevin McCullough is my name, and our phone number 888-589-8840. What we're talking about is a very simple concept. It's a statement being made by a father or someone portraying a father in a narrative in which he says, now that I've returned from active service to my country, I'm responsible for the welfare of my family. I take that very importantly. I see it as a vital responsibility for the welfare of not just my family, but for our culture, for our society. See, I have this belief that when men fully fulfill their roles as husbands and men, that when they fully embrace everything that God has given them to be, that there is an kind of otherworldly good that is done for the beyond their own family's walls. That a community is stronger when it has strong fathers and husbands that are in the midst of it. Because not only are they, guarding the welfare of their family, but if they're good neighbors, they're helping lend a hand as well. Plus, they're training young sons to go up and be those kind of men in the world as well. So what you have is you have a multiple-fold effect of good when fathers are present, when they are who they should be, when they embrace their responsibilities, when they step into the role that God created for them. And the vice versa is also true. When fathers are not present, either emotionally, intellectually, mentally, or physically, when they are gone, a community suffers more greatly than just the sum of one father being out of one household. Because young boys don't have a father to model after. They grow up into a world in which a vacuum is present because they have not understood what manhood is about. And ideally, what happens when a man becomes the kind of man that God created him to be, wives are loved in ways that God expected them to be, said that they should be. They are made, the shining queen of the household, if you will. There's this element of elevation to her that comes when a husband fulfills his role as someone who's protecting and providing. Children feel safe when a father is in their life and in their home and in their experience. There are all kinds of good things that come from dads being the kind of dads that God wanted them to be. I wrote a book about this in 2009. It was called The Kind of Man Every Man Should Be. I think you can still find copies of it floating around out there. I've even thought about bringing it back as an ebook, just as a gift for people, but we may consider that at some point. But in it, I talked about in the first 4 chapters, the way that the modern culture had done everything they could to tear men down and to bring them away from their responsibilities and to tell them, have as much sex as you want and use abortion to get out of the responsibility for it, and don't worry about honoring women because they're just like you. They're not equal in God's eyes to you. They are interchangeable with you, which is the lie of modern feminism, that men and women are interchangeable. We're not interchangeable. We're equal in God's eyes, full equality. God views us both as being equal to Him, and really equality is measured by only one thing. That's the love that God has for you. If God loved someone more than He loved you, then that would be an eternal victimhood that you would have the right to gripe about. But that's not possible because God loves us all the same, equally. But He did not create us to be interchangeable. And so, in today's culture, it is very counterintuitive to have a television show, to have a film, to have a commercial made where a father takes a role that is protective and provisionary for his family. This ad definitely does that. All he's thinking about in the drive that you see during the commercials, what am I going to do? I got to protect my family. How am I best going to do that? There are some that will look at that and say that's sexist. And these may be some of the reasons why the NFL said, well, we're not going to embrace this ad. It's too gender controversial. It's too violence controversial. It has to do with a gun. It's too traditional in its outlook. It's what is called a heteronormative worldview, meaning that the heterosexual family is the family that's perceived here. Look, if this was a guy coming home to his gay lover and their adopted kids, I bet you nobody would have batted an eye about it. In fact, I bet there would have been more fear from the NFL rejecting that ad because of who it would offend than the millions of traditional families that the ad that was proposed actually reinforces the value of. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that counterintuitive? Don't we have a lot to answer for when we get to the day and age where we're so afraid of the abnormal that we are willing to persecute the normal in order to advance it? That's just wrong. Anyway, let me run the ad one more time so you can just hear it for those of you that have just gotten in on the conversation. This is from a proposed ad for this year's Super Bowl.
It's been a long road getting here. And a lot has changed since I got back. Now this is the center of my world. And my family's safety is my highest priority. I am responsible for their protection. And no one has the right to tell me how to defend them. So I've chosen the most effective tool for the job.
Daniel Defense.
All right, so there it is. And again, at the end, there's a logo of a gun that's associated with the company, but there's no mention of a gun. There's no vision of a gun anywhere in the commercial. 888-589-8840. Let's go next to Donna in Oklahoma. Hi, Donna. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here.
Hi. I just wanted to tell you that it really breaks my heart to see that, because our soldiers and our service members are the ones going off to war to protect their families and all of us as a society and a country. And I think this is just a blimp in a moment of time that represents where we're going to as a nation, where we kick God out of our schools and out of our homes and our hearts. And I'm glad that we're talking about this, because I've been praying so hard. I asked, Lord, we all know what the times are, but what are the steps that we can do today? What action can we take as responsible Christians and Americans to make our homes and our societies free and God-fearing one more time?
And that's been your prayer for how long?
Oh, for a long time, but increasingly more and more. I see the writing on the wall, and I work in a service industry where my family's military has been for many generations, and I work serving the military, and it breaks my heart because even now with this ad, we're taking rights away from our service members when they come home. When they go and check into the VA hospital, they ask certain geared questions that would possibly get their rights removed. And we're being punitive on so many different levels against Christians and against service members. And firearms are just inanimate objects. My car can do just as much damage.
Yeah, well, worse in some ways. Donna, thank you for your call, and I agree with you. We've got to, and this is why this broadcast exists, so that we can obliterate confusion, replace it with truth. See, I say this all the time. The culture is heavily invested in keeping you confused. The culture is pouring millions upon billions of dollars worth of equity into every day, sending as many messages out to confuse you, to confuse your child, to confuse your household as much as possible. So if there's no place else that you can turn to, please come to AFA Today every day. Please come to the website. Please come to these places where we have the opportunity to discuss this, because at the end of the day, the reason this exists, the reason that we do this, is so that you have the equipping to replace that confusion with truth and then to pursue clarity. And I think that will be an actual advantage for you as time goes by. 888-589-8840. Let's go to John calling from Texas. Hi, John. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here.
Yes, sir. God bless you, brother. Can you understand me?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead.
Okay. Yes, sir. I was, first of all, it's got to be some kind of a government thing. I don't know about NFL that much. I ain't watched it in a long time. But I was in the store all day trying to buy a box of 22 shells. 22 shells are kind of hard to find nowadays. And a fellow there told me that I noticed they weren't as powerful as they used to be, but a fellow told me that they only last 3 years now. And the powder, something about the powder, I don't know what they've done to it or whatever, but the powder, will make it where it just barely go out of the barrel,
All right, John. I am now having trouble understanding what you're saying. So, I'm sorry, brother, but I got to move on. Let's go to Katie in Oklahoma. Katie, welcome. You're next with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here. Hi.
Hi, thanks. Wow, it's cool to talk to you. I think, first of all, I think your show is awesome, and you are the guy in the room that says what everyone else wants to say, but no one has the guts to say. So, thank you so much for being
Katie, you're
there.
very kind. You're making me blush here. Thank you.
Well, I listened to Rush Limbaugh. You had mentioned Rush Limbaugh before, and I agree with him as far as the NFL, I think, is trying to move away from masculinity. All the talking heads on ESPN, they want to remove football from America, from patriotism, from anything masculine. He calls it the chickification of he calls everything being chickified, which I don't take offense to that term, but I agree. I think that that's what they're trying to do. I honestly think the NFL doesn't have anything poisonous necessarily against the military or anything like that. I think it's just a PR move, that they don't want to be ripped apart by the talking heads at ESPN, because they know that's what they're going to do. Because they're calling people on those programs, they're calling our national anthem a war anthem, et cetera, et cetera. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen some of those stories, and I got to admit, Katie, I think most of that is just really lowbrow stuff. I mean, and I'm sorry that I don't watch more ESPN. Maybe I'm not. Maybe my man card has to be sacrificed because I don't watch much ESPN at all. But I have seen some of that, and I've heard some of those ideas that perhaps they are trying to demasculinize football or emasculate football, and that's entirely possible. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have young boys that are trying to play this game that this nation loves, and those young boys are going to grow up, and if they're good athletes, they're going to have the opportunity to do that on different levels. And I think that to try to It's kind of like trying to take the venison out of a deer. I just don't know if it can be done at the end of the day. 888-589-8840. Let's talk to Greg from Oklahoma. Hi, Greg. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for letting me on. I appreciate it. I appreciate the topic, too. I really wish the NFL would have taken this as an opportunity to run the ad and then come out with saying, look, we believe in responsible gun ownership and responsible use of guns and things like that, and not to kind of combat the image that they've developed with some of their problems. I think they could have used this as an opportunity rather than doing what they did. I wish they'd have come at it that way,
Do you think it represents anything more than just a desire to steer clear of just this one company, or do you think this is a societal statement that's being made?
I think there's a deep problem with personal responsibility in our culture today. And I think some of it may go back to that. I've got 4 daughters, and I'm like you. I want my girls to know how to use a weapon. We're in a gun culture, and I personally like that, or would rather have that than the opposite, I guess. And so I've taken my girls to the gun range, and I want them to be familiar with weapons. But I did want to challenge you, too, on one thing, if I could, a little bit.
Sure.
On the idea of guns being amoral. I understand what you're saying, and when I buy weapons, I pick defensive guns and hunting guns and things. But, there are a lot of weapons out there that are designed, and all guns are ultimately designed to kill. But there are some that are specifically designed to kill humans and things, you know. And so I think from a Christian standpoint, we need to be a little careful when we talk about guns being amoral, and maybe talk about, well, defensive weaponry might be more appropriate when it comes to gun ownership and things like that. And I'm not set on that, but I think it might be worth a conversation.
It could be, and but then you get into the discussion of, because if offensive weapons are necessary, then you got to talk about the issue of a just war. And Greg, I do believe there are such things. So I'm still not sure that it changes the overall equation of the statement of whether or not a gun is moral or immoral. And I personally believe it's kind of like a fork or a pencil. You can do great good with it. You can do great harm with it. And it's a matter of the character of the person using it that makes the difference in that. I say this all the time, friends, but I will not relinquish it. Until we grow different people, we will not grow a different nation. So it's important that we obliterate that confusion, replace it with truth, pursue clarity. Why? So that we develop character. Until we grow different people, we won't have a different nation. And I'm glad we were able to think through this today here on AFA Today, on AFR Talk. I'm Kevin McCullough. I hope you'll join me each weeknight on many of these same stations for the Kevin McCullough Show as well. And until we're together next time, hope you have a great one. Brian Fisher, Focal Point, straight ahead. Stay with us on AFR Talk.